Hello everyone, Namaste. This is Ishika from AWS User Group Delhi NCR. A lot of people come to us with different kind of questions like why AWS, why should we do these certifications, how do we do this certification, what's new in AWS, and hence we came up with this new initiative of podcast series from our user group. And today we are going to record our first ever podcast with our esteemed guest, Pankaj Kumar Mishra. And we try to collate your questions and ask our guest those questions and dig into their journey of AWS. So, Pankaj Kumar Mishra has over 17 years of experience in IT, and currently he heads the sales and go to market strategy in TCS for AI for life sciences and healthcare industry. His passion for technology and learning drives through his 6+ certifications in AWS and certifications in Google Cloud and Azure as well. So let's dive into today's podcast and learn more about Pankaj's journey pre and post AWS.
So we are thrilled to have you here and thank you so much for your time and the opportunity for us to interview you. So Pankaj Mishra is a person who is known as AWS expert or a delivery expert. Like you can go to him for any kind of advice, be it technical, non-technical, be it like your career related or your personal life related, and he will be there guiding you, listening to you, and helping you get answers to those questions. So when I was thinking about someone who could help our audience learn AWS, why should they learn AWS? Along with the challenges that you faced when you transitioned from non-AWS to AWS, how did you do that? I thought who better than Pankaj to start this podcast with us? So thank you so
No,
much, Pankaj.
it is an absolute pleasure to be here, Eshika, and thank you for being so gracious in your introduction. As I always say, that I choose to remain young and curious at heart at all the time. It is my trust in life to be a student of life always.
Absolutely. And I can echo that. So, Pankaj,
Sure.
before we move into your journey into AWS, we want to know
Mhm.
what about your technical journey pre-AWS and
Okay.
why AWS happened.
Okay. Um, that's a very interesting question that you've asked right at the outset. So I started off my career in 2007 when I joined Accenture, and I happened to be working on a hot skill those years called the Siebel CRM. And that's where my journey started in Accenture as a Siebel CRM developer, then later moving on to becoming a Siebel CRM administrator for the same account for the same project. And then the journey went on for almost 7, 8 years. And around 2014-15 is when it was on the decline, the Siebel CRM as a product and as a platform as
Mhm.
such. But I happened to continue working on that technology. And it was a rainy afternoon, I think it was July or August 2015, when I called in. I had invited my brother-in-law. I will not call him brother-in-law, sorry, not my elder brother. Um, and his family over lunch in Bangalore. So we were having good lunch, and both of us usually would not talk to each other a lot. But that day, I don't know what happened. We ended up talking too much about each other's lives and whatnot. And he ended up asking me, "So, bhai, what do you do?"
Mhm.
I said, "This is what I do." Now, Abhay, who's my elder brother, he always happened to work on niche technologies right from the start of his career. We about started our career about the same time. And he happened to work on all the new technologies all the time. So when I told him that I work on Siebel CRM, he ended up saying that, you look like working on an 18th century technology. Like, okay,
Ouch.
so what do I do? And it did not hit me that much, but still I was like curious. Okay, what are you trying to tell me? Then he
Mhm.
said, it's the world of cloud. Why don't you learn cloud? I said, well, I'm all up for it, but then if I have to get a job in cloud, I would need some experience. He said, well, start with the
Yeah.
first step, start with learning. And that was when he introduced me to his colleague, Utsav. He now happens to be in Japan, and he's the person whom I consider my guru, my mentor, who
Mm-hmm.
got me into the world of AWS. Uh, so Abhay introduced me to Utsav. Utsav agreed to teach me for no cost, and he used to call me on weekends. So no cost, new technology, what a deal, right? I said, ah, let's
Yeah.
go for it. Let's go for it. And then I think he taught me like a teacher for good 3 to 4 months every Saturday and Sunday.
Over calls.
Uh, no, he used to physically call me to his PG. That
Okay.
was in Silk Board in Bangalore. And he used to call me for 2 hours, and there was not a single day when he would leave me before 4 or 5 hours. So he used to get so intense. Okay, now you do this, you do
Mm-hmm.
that, and whatnot. And that's where my journey started in AWS. And I'm sure you would understand that if you're working in a company, in a project, nobody would allow you, or your manager would not allow you to work on something else than a project, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
so that is when I started reaching out to people for stretch assignments in my organization. And luckily,
Okay.
after few months of begging people, I got one assignment to work on AWS, and that's where it all started from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then soon got into a role of a cloud engineer, AWS cloud engineer. Um, and that fascinated me to the core extent that, okay, there's so much world of possibilities here. Um, Cloud engineer to a cloud architect associate to a cloud
Mm-hmm.
architect as such. And then went on. I always had this penchant of maybe working in a sales capacity since I understood technology very well. So I wanted to be on the other side of the table and see, okay, how does that world look like? How do we get
Wow.
business? And then, of course, my previous boss, Rajiv Trivedi, he was generous enough to offer me a sales role in one of the strongest geos, which is North America. And he asked me to come and lead the sales and go-to-market strategies for the life sciences and the healthcare vertical. And
Mm-hmm.
the whole KPO was to expand the AWS business. And from there on, given that now it's a technology change, so I wanted to move back to technology. And that's when our leadership also felt that you would do a much better role in a technology space. So
Mm-hmm.
it's now where I lead solutions for North America Geo for multiple industry verticals, not only health, life sciences, healthcare, and
Mm-hmm.
that too also spreading across the three hyperscalers. So yeah, that's my journey, and that's how it all started from.
That's great to hear. I would like to highlight 2 points over here. One thing that you said was once the learning completed. So a lot of college students they come to us and they say that they have a lot of certifications in
Yeah.
AWS. So what's the next step? Like they are always bridging the gap between hands-on learning, technical learning, and then certifications. So one thing that you highlighted here was to go and ask for side assignments.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest a student or like what we see is an early hire? They when they come to us, we also say that you're just an early hire, do these things or not. So suppose like they don't get a project as such. So how do you suggest that they keep on building projects and what kind of projects should they build in AWS?
Given we have access to so much technology these days, I think curating a project outline or a project um question, maybe, I think it's not very difficult, right? How do you relate it to a real world scenario? If you're not hands-on into a particular, let's say, project as such in an organization, you still have many means to create a very near real world kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Use that as a catalyst or an anchor, and then create a prototype out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
These days, services on AWS, or even if you procure some lab environments on AWS, I don't think so it's going to cost you too much. And even if
Mm-hmm.
it does cost you a few thousand rupees, I think that's worth the investment towards
Yeah.
where you want to go at, right? So
Mm-hmm.
my answer would be look at a near real world scenario. Uh, Use all the services around that
Mm-hmm.
that you can, and then build a prototype. Now that would be a very good base or a foundation for you to then speak about it in an
Yeah.
interview or any kind of a conversation to take it forward.
Yeah. So this brings now the same question where you said, like, I am sure you talked very smoothly about the transition that you made from one technology to cloud, but I'm sure it would have been very difficult. And whenever there is an advent of a new technology or a new methodology, we often see that there's a trend or graph of reluctance, hesitation, and all, especially when there are people who are expert in one kind of field and then they're feared that, okay, now AWS is going to come, like people who worked on on-prem or some people like mid-senior people or in the mid career stages, they feel
Mm.
kind of hesitation in learning something new because it's practically very difficult for them to go through that journey also.
Yeah.
So what's your perspective on it? What would be your advice for them?
There's one word that I normally go for that's called inertia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that resists change in a state of motion, right? Meaning an object is at rest, it stays at rest. And if an object is in motion, it continues to stay in motion with the same speed in the same direction until an external force is applied, right? So example is I'm at rest. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm stuck. I'm not learning anything new, but I have a job that does the job for me.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, I am moving. I have absolutely no time to learn anything new. I'm okay doing it, right? Now, both of them are bad. Now, when it comes to self and self growth, there is hardly any external force. It's always within, it's always driven within. Uh,
Yeah.
so, one needs to constantly recalibrate ourselves, especially in a time where it is impossible to keep pace with the rapid speed at which technology is evolving. So what I tell those people is that your fundamentals would not change at all. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
you've done from an experience point of view, from a technical role point of view, can you map those into new parallels on AWS? Now that's a very good start. Number one, right? How do
Yeah.
you draw parallels from the current to the to be, right? Second is, and since I was also very lucky, find a mentor,
Mm-hmm.
right? Who can invest some time in your development, and someone who someone would be foolish enough to kind of not look at the professional communities that we have on AWS these days. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
communities. I'm sure you are part of it as well. Your AWS user
Yeah.
groups in Delhi, for example. That is such a great community to be a part of because you stay surrounded with like-minded people. You learn
Yeah.
new things from them. There are so many communities on LinkedIn, right? Uh,
Yes.
so, uh, talking about myself, I was very extremely lucky to find an amazing mentor in Utsav at a very
Mm-hmm.
critical juncture of my life. And all one needs to do is look for one, because the
Yeah.
saying is, when the student wants to learn, the teacher appears, right? So it's very important to understand that what was a skill yesterday might not even be a skill today. What was a
Yeah.
skill a few years ago or a hot skill a few years ago is not a skill anymore. And the sooner we realize, the better it is, right? And and
Yes.
lastly, as I said in the previous question, also there's no alternative to hands-on as such. Think of projects, be creative, come to near real world solutions, and implement them on labs. Most of them, as you all know, it comes for free or even nominal cost these days, right? Uh,
Yeah.
Now, I like to end this by probably drawing a metaphor or an analogy, right? I'm sure, I'm not sure if you will be able to relate, but when I started driving my car back in late 90s, you had to really turn the accelerator, sorry, the wheel of the steering wheel of the car to turn the car in a specific direction, right? Now it is the click of a,
Yeah.
you can just spin it with your finger, right? So the fundamentals of driving that car was brakes, right? The only difference is now the dashboards have changed. You're driving a smarter car. So the fundamentals
Yeah.
still remain the same, the current ecosystem, but now you're trying to learn how to drive a smarter car. That's how we end.
Yeah, and this also reminds me of a very intuitive thought that when I first started internship, my manager's manager reached out to me and she said that she has this practice of reaching out to new hires and talking to them over a coffee and all, but we were all in a virtual space. So we had a virtual connect. And what she said was that because you people are coming from a space where you had a lot of free time, you would have experienced a lot of technology change and all. So I love to connect with new hires, with freshers, so that I can get a mindset shift, a new perspective of what's happening in the world, how are things being looked at right now. So even in
That is
our, yeah.
that is such a pertinent point, and I truly believe in this that if you want to find a mentor, right,
Mm-hmm.
find three mentors. One person who is experienced than you, one person who is probably at par at you, and one person who's junior to you.
Yeah,
Given a single situation, you'll get three entirely very refreshing perspectives, and it changes the way you think.
absolutely. Absolutely. So that is what I also tell people, and I think knowledge sharing sessions in the corporate, it's a great boon for everyone because like if one person has learned something, let's do a knowledge sharing sessions rather than just keeping our knowledge to ourselves because knowledge always grows when you share.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's very true that you are the CEO of your own career. Nobody
Yeah,
else is going to do it for you. It is you who has to decide where you are. It is you who has to calibrate and recalibrate your current skills at the pace at which the technology is evolving. And it is
yeah,
you who has to take that actions and continue progressing further.
yes. So I always, this brings to our third question, where we are saying that we
Mhm.
have to constantly adapt to the new technology and all. So Pankaj, how do you handle this? Like suppose there's a client that has come to you, there's a steady project going on now, okay, and you have already listed down the architecture, everything is going smooth. But then comes because AWS, Amazon is growing, Bedrock is growing a lot, SageMaker, there are new technologies, new ETL shift that's going on in the SageMaker as well. So how do you adapt to these changes? Do you let the project be how it was used to be, or do you like how do you look at this?
Hmm. Interesting. Um, the only way you look at it is what's in it for the customer,
Mm-hmm.
the end customer. Anything new that comes to the fore, right? And if you want to factor that into your new system, no matter how smart it is, in my
Mm-hmm.
view, it should be analyzed on a trade-off between the cost and the performance.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I begin from. And even here, you understanding the customer pulse is extremely paramount. Now, for example, I spoke about cost and performance. Now,
Yeah.
if you're working with a customer whose overall agenda is cost optimization, now
Mm-hmm.
no matter how smart the new service is, it will escalate the cost. Would
Yeah.
you go ahead and use that service? The answer is
No.
no, right? But is this something that will apply to all the customers? The answer again is no, because there's no one size fits all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Second aspect is one also needs to understand what is the customer's propensity to execute and implement that new service in their ecosystem in a timeline that works for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I have to, let's say, draw a quadrant
Mm-hmm.
between effort and impact, right? Whatever, if a new service is
Mm-hmm.
easy to implement and the impact is great,
Yeah.
right? Least effort, high impact.
Yeah.
Low hanging fruits, let's implement it, right?
Mm-hmm.
A good example would be any system which is nearing end of life, for example, right? So you have
Yes.
newer technologies for them to move it to, so it will be taken care of on its own, right? So again, are you going to refactor it? Probably not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because refactoring, to be honest, in my view, it's very risky as well. Because what's the risk of breaking existing functionality, right? You never
Yeah.
know what will break when, where, and the impact of the business could be absolutely catastrophic, both
Mm-hmm.
from a business and a time to value as well, right?
Yeah.
What if nothing breaks, but for you to implement that new service takes like 1.5 years because the system
Mm-hmm.
is so complex? Now, is there any time to value? There is none, right?
Yeah.
Even if you want to go ahead, can you first test it? properly, right? Um, Multiple ways of doing it: canary deployments, blue-green deployments in lower
Mm-hmm.
environments, percentage of your workloads on the production going into that new service, then slowly progressing it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's all about what's the value and what's the time of impact to the end customer who's using it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's no one size fits all.
Okay. Yeah, that makes much sense. So with
Mhm.
the advent of Gen AI and all, it's like a very controversial question. Do you feel like a lot of customers they come to you and say we want to implement Gen AI, but in actual their case does not involve Gen AI, and a similar pressure could also come from your like higher management that okay we need to do a project of Gen AI, but then what are the projects? The question is first, how do you like navigate through this scenario, especially when the customer you have to tell it to the customer that no, you don't require Gen AI. And second question would be like, what are the projects where you actually feel like Gen AI has given its value? It has increased its value.
I think it's very important for the customer to also understand the use cases these days, which they all talk about, and Gen AI, agentic AI. It's a
Hmm.
conversation of every boardroom, every meeting room these days. Every call that you enter, you will hear these buzzwords, right? And
Yes.
yes, it is the need of the hour, no shying about it. But then, uh, as a trusted advisor to the customer, it is your duty to tell the customer that, hey, and customers are smart as well, right? They know that a particular use case can be solved using a traditional AI ML model, for which you don't
Okay.
have to pay for tokenization and whatnot, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so your eye to detail as to which use case can be resolved using a traditional AI ML model, using simple scripted automations,
Yes.
right? Does not even have to go to that. But yes, if you have a platform that really seamlessly automates each and every workflow business process cycle for a customer, makes it end-to-end seamless for them, then yes,
Hmm.
it's a discussion worth having for. But yes, you have to be very congruent and very factful as to what would make value for the customer and what would not.
Okay. So did it ever happen to you that you had to refuse a customer saying that no, we don't require this? How did the customer take it up?
It's the way how you refuse it, right? It would be foolish for us to say, yeah, you don't need a Gen AI.
Mm.
Probably the customer might think that, do you even have the skill then?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
then how do you convey that point that yes, maybe the budget that you have, maybe out of the
Hmm.
5 use cases that you're talking about, maybe one or two could be done using Gen AI, ML, Gen AI, agentic AI models, but the rest could be actually done using traditional AI ML model. And that has happened to me. Of course, I cannot disclose the customer, but
Hmm.
then it's happened in a room in a workshop where we eventually agreed that yes, majority of the use cases could be done using simple automation.
Okay, that's nice. So coming up to our follow-up question for this, that what is one area in healthcare, life sciences, where you felt like agentic AI, Gen AI has actually made lives easier? Like it really proved to be amazing. If you could share any use case with us.
Hmm. So in healthcare, the overall, let's say the in the insurance domain, right? When you buy
Mm-hmm.
any insurances, right? And this was also a story that we had done in the last reInvent at the reInvent stage in Las Vegas. The overall sales onboarding and the underwriting process, right?
Okay.
How because a lot of brokers they want a very seamless experience of okay, these are the policies that I want to sell it to a particular employer or an organization. At the same time, the end users who who buy those policies, they always
Mm-hmm.
wish that is there a way where or a system that can tell us which policy would best suit us based on our conditions, right? It
Yeah.
has to be very personalized. So the overall underwriting process of a policy to
Mm-hmm.
onboarding a customer, that was a very complex process by nature. And
Mm-hmm.
how did we solve that problem statement using a overall Gen AI and an AI model to bring that overall experience from maybe a matter of days to a matter of hours? And that was one use case very prevalent in healthcare, and not only healthcare. In banking financial services, you have the similar kind of a
Mm-hmm.
problems where insurance policies are sold and bought. So that is one very specific and a very wide, not a very wide, but a very sought after use case, which customers are trying to solve using Gen AI and agentic AI models now. And that is
Mm-hmm.
something that we have been working on. And of course, now that we've laid out the foundation for a Gen AI kind of a solution, now how can we also infuse agents into those processes to make
Yes.
that even more faster and even more seamless?
Yes. That's absolutely one thing. And another thing is when you are using agentic AI kind of stuff or Gen AI kind of stuff, it's very difficult because many a times the results are not reproducible.
Yeah,
Like you cannot
spot
produce the
on.
same results from even same prompts. So traceability is
Correct.
definitely an issue. So how do you kind of manage it? Like make, how do you ensure that the customer, like whenever you're selling your product to the customer, how do you tell them that, okay, like on what factor is the trust based on when you're delivering the Gen AI solutions?
See, the overall trust is based on one simple principle is that we are not using your data to train our models, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Your data is in a secured private network, and the models are outside of it, right? And we are actually not hitting your data. We are probably creating some kind of references, looking at the data, and then trying to create meaning out of it. Because right now, uh, one is the data privacy, the other aspect is the security.
Mm-hmm.
If any customer is well taken care on the security and the data privacy, I think you win the trust over there. Now,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, you cannot go big bang. You
Yeah.
have to do small prototypes. You have to take maybe subsets of data, show them the value,
Mm-hmm.
right? And at the same time, ensure that there is no data privacy leaks. And of course, the entire architecture is secure in its nature
Mm-hmm.
so that you win that trust. And then, of course, you probably go from a line of business of a company, and then you expand into an enterprise-wide kind of a Gen AI solution for them.
Yeah. That's a very good roadmap.
Yeah,
And that's a
yeah,
very intelligent one
and
as well.
exactly, and more or less, there's something called a grounding technique as well, right? The grounding technique
Yes.
is where if you are wanting to be getting accurate information of your searches, right? It can has hallucinate as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can give you non-factual statements as well, which is not pertinent to your organization. So how do you ground those queries to the knowledge base that is there only for your organization and then give you those accurate results? And that's another
Mm-hmm.
way of probably winning that trust, because hallucination is definitely playing a very big role in kind of
Yeah.
breaking or even winning the trust of the customers.
Yeah. I can think of endless questions here, but unfortunately, time is at premium. So I would
Yeah.
just like to end this podcast with one question or one, like it would be more of like a curious question. What, when you started AWS, you have worked in AWS for so many years. Let's end this podcast with one of your proudest moment with AWS.
Oh my God, that's a very interesting question, Eshika. Proudest, if I have to say, and it was very early in my career.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm sure if you have worked on AWS, curate or creating a VPC structure with one public subnet and a private subnet with a web server, with an application server underlying and a database server, and all talking to them, and then boom, you get a hello world on your web page, right? I think the first time when I was able to successfully create a VPC, not using any automation wizard, but actually understanding what the route tables are and how do you create those routes. How do
Mhm.
you open up the internet gateway for your web servers through the public subnets? And how do you not allow your database instances to be talking to the internet, but
Yeah.
but on the other way, use a NAT gateway for your database instances to talk to the internet and not allow the internet to talk to them? Oh my God, that was like a aha moment for me. Uh, Something that I'll never forget. And I think with a lot of pride, I went up and showed it to Utsav, saying that see,
Mhm.
I created a VPC.
Yeah, congratulations, because I still shiver by the name of VPC.
I know.
Well, so with this, on this note, thank you so much, Pankaj, for again your time, your advices, walking us through your journey, your hardships, and also your aha moment. It was a pleasure talking to you, and all the very best for your career. We look forward to you, and thank you so much.
No, totally a pleasure. And thank you so much for having me on your first podcast. And I wish you all the best so that it becomes one of the most sought after podcasts in the world of AWS for so many learners out there. And I hope I was able to inspire a few people out there. And yes, my contact details are there on LinkedIn. You can find me there on LinkedIn and absolutely available all the time to be doing any kind of help. Thank you, Ashika.
Yeah, that's another thing that I actually need to learn from you, because I remember the first time I messaged you, I was seeing another of your session and I just messaged you saying that why would he even reply to me? But then, yes, people, if you want to reach out to him, he really does. And as he correctly said in the beginning, that if you agree to be a student, the teacher will find you. You will find a
Absolutely.
teacher.
100%.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pankaj, once again for coming. It was a pleasure talking to you. It's
Thank you, Ashika.
late evening for you, so good night.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.